Good morning. Today we are continuing to work on with the data sets and different ways we can display them. Today we are doing CO63. I can interpret and create box and whisker plots. So we started off with what we already knew, and it was reviews. Yesterday we had the bar graphs and the line graphs. Those are familiar with us. Yesterday we had a new one with the stem and leaf. Today is new with the box and whisker. So we really need to listen to how we interpret the box and whisker. So a box and whisker plot is a data display that divides a data set into 4 parts. That 4 parts is going to be a key thing we have to remember. We use these are going to be vocab words. The lower extreme, lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and the upper extreme. Those vocab words are going to help us break that box and whisker into our 4 parts. Okay, so we need to understand what those vocab words mean so we can break up our data correctly and we can interpret it. Remember, each of our graphs is used for different reasons. The reason we would use the box and whiskers is because it shows the range and the median of the data. So here's an example of a box and whisker plot showing the scores of a math test. Okay, so we have a 5-number summary. That's those 5 important vocab words I was talking about. So we're going to look to see what those mean. We have a minimum score. What do you think our minimum score would be with what we know about reading graphs? What do you think, Moses? Okay, so Moses is looking over here for 87. Think about what we know minimum means. Is minimum going to be a high or a low? It's not the high. Minimum is the lowest amount. So our minimum score would be over at this end. Our minimum score is going to be over at this end. Okay, so you were right that it's one of the ends. We just have to go to the lowest end. So minimum means it's going to be low. So looking at our numbers, we have 70 and then 74, and then there's a line in the middle. What do you think that line in the middle represents, Joy? 72, because it's halfway between 70 and 74. So our minimum score is that lowest score. That is our lower extreme. Okay. Then we need to know our maximum score. What would our maximum score be on this? If minimum is at this end of it, what would the maximum be, Leo? The other endpoint, that farthest point out. We see there's an 86 and a 90 And that farthest end is right in the middle. What number would be right in the middle, Leo? 88. So our maximum score that was earned on that math test was an 88. So the lowest score somebody got was 72. The highest score somebody got was 88. Now we've got some new words. Lower quartile. The lower quartile is going to be right here, the line of our box. So that's our lower quartile. What score would that lower quartile be? Rhoda?
75.
Very good. We know in the middle of 74 and 78 would be 76, and that line comes in between 74 and 76. So our lower quartile, the left side of our box, is the beginning of that lower quartile. Okay, so that is 75. Our median, we know when we do mean, median, and mode, median's the middle, still means middle. So we look for the middle of our box for the median. What score would be our median score, Matt?
79.
79. Because we know between 78 and 82 is 80. And that median comes in the middle of 78 and 80, so it's 79. Any guess on what our upper quartile would be? What do you think, Jack?
Is it like a range of numbers?
No. Our lower quartile was one number.
Oh.
Remember that one score was the left side of our box.
Right.
So what do you think the upper quartile would be?
Is it that line in the middle?
The line in the middle right here is our
Oh,
median.
no.
So we had the lower quartiles, the left side of the box, and we had the median in the middle.
80. 80.
Say it louder.
80.
So 80 is right here. Lower quartile was the left side of the box. The upper quartile is going to be the right side of the box. Does that kind of make sense? Lower quartile is the left side, upper quartile is the right side. So what score would that be, Ashley?
85.
85. So, looking at our areas here, we can see our numbers go from our minimum score all the way to the maximum score. That's all the scores that we have. Now remember, I said box and whisker, we break it into 4 parts. So there's one part is here, one part is here, then we have here, and then we have to that maximum score. So we have the minimum, that lower extreme to the lower quartile is one section. That lower quartile to the median is our second section. The median to the upper quartile is our third section. And the upper quartile to the upper extreme is our fourth section. You see where all 4 sections are. It's important to know because we have to be able to divide our data up into those 4 sections. The median is the middle of all the data points, all of those math test scores. So the middle score that kid scored on that math test was 79. So that means half of our scores are on that bottom half, and half of the scores are on the top half. Okay, median's the middle, so half the scores are on the bottom, half the scores are on the top. The same number of scores are in each section. Think about when I show us how to break our information for those word problems into a bar graph. You guys know what I'm talking about with that bar graph? We had a bar graph, and I need to break it into 4 parts. I would break it into 4 equal parts. We have the same number of pieces in each of those parts. So there are the same number of scores, not the same scores, but the same number of scores fall into each of those parts. All right, let's look at some more of these. The interquartile range. So interquartile goes from the lower quartile to the upper quartile. So what would that range be? Rhoda?
70 to 94.
So you're looking at our whole number line. We don't want that whole number line. For the interquartile range, look at where I'm marking. We want to go from the lower quartile to the upper quartile. So what numbers are we going with, Jackson?
75 to 85.
75 to 85. So that's our interquartile range. How are we feeling about that? Okay. So our range of scores, this is now all the scores. What would our range of scores be? Rhoda?
70 to 94.
So look carefully. Where is our minimum score that somebody scored on our test? Rhoda?
72.
72. What is the maximum score?
58.
So that range of scores is not the full number line that's listed. That number line goes on longer than what our scores are. So we have to go from our minimum to our maximum. So that lower extreme to the upper extreme. Does that make sense? So when we're looking at the interquartile range, we look at the lower quartile to the upper quartile. When we look at the range of all the scores, we're going from the minimum to the maximum, that lower extreme to the upper extreme. So that interquartile is the box, and look at how that lower extreme and the upper extreme look like whiskers coming off of that box. So think about cat's whiskers, right? It's sticking out from the face of the cat. That box is like the face of the cat. The whiskers stick off of it. Those are the extremes, the farthest out numbers. So, if 28 students took this test, remember we have our 4 parts to it. If 28 students took the test, how many scored between 79 and 85? So 79 and 85 is right here. If I know that there's 28 students who took the test, and remember I told us this is like our bar graph. If I have 28 students taking the test, how many students are going to be in each section? Michael?
7.
How did you get 7, Michael?
28 divided by 4 is 7.
28 divided by 4. There are going to be 7 students, 7 scores in each section, equal scores. So if I look up here, how many students would be in between 79 and 85? Between 79 and 85. How many scores would fall in that section? Rhoda?
14.
Here's section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. Just like we had in our bar graph. Section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. If I look at this going from 79 to 85, that's my section 3. How many students are going to fall in section 3? Section 3. Joy? 7. Because remember, there are 7 equal parts. The size looks different because the scores, they're based on what the actual scores are. So they just, some have a bigger distance between the scores that those 7 students had. But each section is going to have those 7 students. Just like our bar graph, each section had the 7 students. Does that make sense? So you're taking that box and whiskers, you're finding your 4 sections. There's always going to be 4 sections to our box and whisker plot. You always take the full number and divide it by 4 to figure out how many are in each section. That's the first thing I would do, would be to divide up my box and whisker into my 4 sections and figure out how many fall in each section. Then you look at the sections they're asking you about, between 85 and 88. So I look here between 85 and 88, oh, look at that. It's a section. How many scores are between 85 and 88? How many are in that section? I should see every hand up. How many are in section 4? Alex?
7.
7. So each small section has 7. Sometimes they'll ask us about 2 sections together. If it asked us about the interquartile range, how many scores would be in that interquartile range? Remember that interquartile range is the box. So from 75 to 85. How many scores were in that interquartile range? So think about how many are in section 2 and how many are in section 3. How many would be in that interquartile range? What do you think, Jack?
14.
Yeah, how did you get 14, Jack?
You add 7 plus 7.
I add my section 2 with my section 3. That's the interquartile range. So if it's asking how many are in the interquartile range, you have to add the 2 sections together. Michael?
What if one of your numbers is a decimal? Like 27 point, well, for example, 27.5.
Then you have a decimal for your answer. Was that something that you were looking farther down on?
On the bottom.
Okay, well, let's go down to that. What is the big thing we need to remember about box and whisker plots? How many sections are there? Joy? 4 sections. There are 4 parts. That is super important to remember. Each part has the same number. So if we were given 28 students, we need to divide 28 by 4. So we knew how many were in each part. Then you want to divide up that box and whisker plot into your 4 parts. So let's look at this bottom one. The scatter plot shows the totals of points scored in several basketball games. So let's do our 5-point summary. What is my minimum score that was scored? Haley? That minimum, that lower extreme, is 15. What is my maximum, my upper extreme? Alex?
30.
30. I go to the far end, that would be 30. From that, can I say what the range is? What would the range be? Remember, our range is going from the lowest to the highest. So what would my range be? Rhoda?
15 to 30.
15 to 30. So the range is the lowest to the highest. So if you know your minimum and your maximum, you know your range. Where do I find my lower quartile on my graph? Joy? So I have my box. The lower quartile would be which line of the box? The first line, right? That lower quartile is that first line of my box. Because that interquartile range, remember, goes from the lower to the upper quartile. So that lower quartile would be what score? Michael?
17.5.
17.5, because it's in the middle of that 17 and 18. What would my what would my median score be? Fernando?
21.
21. Remember, median is the middle of the box, median middle. What would my upper quartile be? Leo?
27.5.
27.5. Jeff?
Question.
Mhm.
Could you say 17 and 1/2, or would you have to do a decimal?
If you did a fraction instead of a decimal, that's totally fine. Means the same thing. Okay, show me your thumbs. How are you feeling about that? All right. Some of us are still, we're learning, and that's totally fine. Now we need to know our interquartile range, lower quartile to the upper quartile. What would that range be? Leo?
17.5 to 27.5.
Now, sometimes they'll say the range is from this number to this number. Sometimes people want, how many altogether is that? So from 17.5 to 27.5, you take the big number, subtract the lower number. What range would that be? 27.5 minus 17.5, Rhoda?
10.
Yeah. So sometimes you'll see the range from this number to this number. Sometimes it'll say it has a range of 10. Does that make sense? So I accept either way. It all depends on the test, who's asking the question and how they want it. I accept giving me the range of numbers or saying it's a range of 10. So now we're saying there are 48 games played. So remember, first step is dividing into your 4 sections. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. They tell us how many total games there are. How many games fall in each section? Claire? 48 is all together. We want to know each of those sections. Jackson?
12.
How did you get 12, Jackson?
I don't know, 48 divided by 4.
48 divided by 4. So I know that there are 12 scores here, 12 scores here, 12 scores here, and 12 scores here. I took the full number of 48, divided into 4 equal parts. How are we feeling about that? Okay, you find your 4 parts, then you divide your full number up by 4 and you fill in those numbers. So, how many games had between 15 and 21 points? So I'm going to look on here and say, okay, 15 is right here, 21 is right here. I filled in how many are in each section. How many would be between 15 and 21 points, Matt?
12.
12 would be to here. I want to go from here to here.
24.
24. So you have to look at where that range is that it's asking about. This was asking about 2 of our parts, so I had to add those 2 parts together. Then it says how many games had between 27.5, so 27.5 and 30 points. How many games fall in that section? Matt?
12.
12. That one is just one section. So you always have to divide up into your 4 sections. Put how many fall in each section, equal numbers, 12, 12, 12, and 12. Then you have to see where are they asking about? Which parts do I need to fill in? How are we doing on this first page? Okay, now that the parts are being explained, it's making a little more sense. We still might not be 100% on it. That's why we have a work page to work on. So let's look at our second page. Still a box and whisker plot. What do you think the first thing you should do is? What should our first thing we do is, Joy? Okay, so you can find that minimum and the maximum. The lowest score and the highest score. Fill that in. So look to see what your lowest and your highest is. Then we see on that next line is the lower quartile, the median, and the upper quartile. Notice how on my box and whisker, I actually drew lines. Do you think you should draw lines on yours? Yeah, because that's gonna help us find our 4 equal parts. Where do I find the lower quartile? Rhoda?
That's the line that you
At which line?
the first one.
Of what?
Right.
No, this would be the first line of the graph. That's my minimum. So when we talk about the quartiles, we're talking about our box. The lower quartiles on the left side of the box, the upper quartiles on the right side of the box. So that interquartile range is our box. Lower quartiles on the left, upper quartiles on the right. So where's my median? Where's the median score? Jack?
12? Or,
Tell me where I find it. Don't tell me what it is.
okay, in the middle of the square right there.
In the middle of the box. The line in the middle of the box is the median. Now, I drew lines for each of those 5 scores I needed to find. Look at my box, or my graph here, do you see our 4 sections? So when you draw those lines for the minimum and the maximum, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, and that median, draw those lines and you can see your 4 sections. We know the interquartile range goes from the lower quartile to the upper quartile. Our full range goes from the minimum to the maximum. And up here, it says data was collected for 1 year. Data was collected weekly for 1 year. Let's see, how many weeks did the shop have between 12 and 21 pets? So we have 12 pets to 21 pets. Now I'm getting confused. It didn't tell me a number to divide, did it? Or did it? Rhoda? Okay, so we know there's 1 year, and it says weekly. How many weeks are in 1 year? Joy? Fernanda? Is it 52 or 56? 52. 52 weeks in a year. Does that make sense how we found our total number? Sometimes they give it to us, oh, they played 48 games. Sometimes they give us words that we need to figure out what that number is. How many weeks in a year? There's 52 weeks in a year. So my range, or my first thing I did was I broke it up into my 4 parts and I filled in those 5 numbers. That's your first step. Finding your sections. Second step, what do we need to do now that we figured out what our total number of weeks is? What do we have to do? First step, find your 4 sections. Second step is what? So, first step, find the 4 parts. Second step, divide the total, oops, that should be B, by what number? Somebody say it out loud. 4. We have 4 parts. We need to divide that total by 4 so we can see how many go in each section. What is 52 divided by 4? Alex?
13.
So each of these sections, I'm going to write a 13 above it. Now I'm going to be able to answer those questions. A says, how many weeks did the shop have between 12 and 21 pets? 12 and 21, can I figure out that answer now? I look to see how many fall in between that. Sometimes it's just 1 part, makes it easy. Sometimes it's more than 1 part, we have to add. But you have to first find your 4 parts with that important 5 number summary that shows us our 4 parts. Then you have to break those parts up. You got to break up that total number into 4 equal parts. And then you can answer the questions. So I want you to fill in all of those answers. Okay, I walked us through how to find the answers. You're going to write down the answers. On the bottom, you're going to create your own box and whisker plot. So we know what that box and whisker plot looks like. What do you think to create our own? What do you think our first step needs to be? Michael?
Create the number line.
We want to create a number line. What do we have to do before we can create the number line? Matt?
Put the numbers in order.
We have to put the numbers in order so we can see what our minimum is and what our maximum is. So we're going to take these numbers and put them in order. So our first number would be 20. Notice I'm, again, crossing off as I use the number. Then we have 22, then 27, 31, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 42, 44, and 45. Now, I'm going to draw the picture. Well, before I draw the picture, number line. I'm going to draw my number line down lower. I know I have to go below the 20, so I might do something like 18, and I'm going to go all the way up to 46. I'm going to skip count by twos, because I don't want to have to count all of those. So I'm going to say 18 to 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, I was close. 46. Then I need to do my minimum, my maximum, my lower and upper quartile, make your box. So we know my minimum is at 20. So that's just a circle, a point. My maximum's at 45. That's my point. That's the easy part. I need to figure out where that box is gonna fall. What do you think I need to do? What do you think, Alex?
Divide it into 4 parts.
Yeah, I need to find those 4 parts. So if these are my numbers, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 numbers all together. All right, what do I have to do with that total number, Joy? Divide it by 4. So I know I'm going to need 12 divided by 4 is 3. I need 3 scores in each part. So where is that lower quartile going to be? That left side of my box. Where would that be? Rhoda? Close. Not 25. What do you think, Michael? Look at where this blue line is. It is in between 27 and 31. What number would be in between 27 and 31? Remember, if we have 2 numbers, what do we have to do to find that one? Audrey?
24.
Not 24. Jack?
Is it the 29?
How did you get 29, Jack?
Because it's in between 27 and 31.
Sometimes we can know 29 is 2 away from 27, 2 away from 31. Sometimes we have to find that mean. We add the 2 numbers together, divide by 2. Okay? So we have to find that mean of those 2 numbers. Add them together and divide by 2, which is 29. So my lower quartile, that line, is going to be at 29. Where is my median line going to be? Alex?
39.
39 would be here. This is the middle of my 4 parts. What number would that be?
37.
37. 37 is right in the middle of 36 and 38. So I know my median is at 37. Where would my upper quartile be? Look at that third line. 42 and 42. Where would I draw my line, Jackson? 42 and 42 would be 42, right? Because there's nothing in between 42 and 42. It's just 42. So if our numbers are the same, it's right at 42. Then I can connect to form my box, and I draw the whiskers out to those extremes. Does that make sense how we figured all of those out?
Yeah.
Okay, then all we had to do was create it, so I walked us through that. So you need to answer all of those parts on the top, and you need to do the review. But you do have to understand those 4 parts to the box and whisker plot. It's important to remember what the 5-point summary is, and how to figure out those 4, how many are in each 4 parts. We have a little bit of work time. We have Khan Academy due on Thursday, so if you finish your page, then you're working on making sure Khan Academy is done. That's due tomorrow. So if you're done with the Khan Academy, you're working on your new math packet, memorizing the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So this is a quiet work time. Let's focus. So there is nobody with nothing to do. If you're done with Khan Academy, I should not see your device open. So if Khan Academy is done, your device is closed. You're pulling out your math packet, the new one, packet 11, or you're coming up and getting tested on the gifts of the Holy Spirit. If you are watching this at home, I hope you are well, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.